All right, welcome back. So this is another video in my Sovereign Network series. I'm having quite a lot of trouble with following the guide here. My disks, I don't think are set up properly. Now, yesterday I zeroed out all of my disks because there was existing configuration on one of them that was causing issues, but that didn't still solve the issue. So there's a lot of steps missing from the guide. About how your disks need to be formatted before you start. I have a feeling I might have to go in and use Rufus um, because let's pull up Rufus here. Um, and I don't see it anymore. Oh, here it is. So we'll pull up Rufus 4.6 and so we can see we should be able to format uh, partition schemes and file systems on it. I thought I could just do it in the Windows, but I see in the or not the Windows in as part of this menu in Ubuntu. I thought I could just do it there, but we see so I'm up past all this. I'm here. Um, these are so this one's formatted as FVAT. Um, this one's formatted as um, yeah, so there's some odd formatting on here that I didn't see the ability to do. Now, this we're gonna reformat. So we're gonna blow away these three. So in the next screenshot, we should see for that second disk after we confirm to reformat. So this screenshot here, yeah, see how all these are now gone? That's because we reformatted them. So now it's just all free space. So we're going to do that, I think, for both disks. Uh, right. So we do that for both disks. So now this is the second disk, which is all free space. We can tell that from the size. So this is the USB drive. We don't want to reformat that, otherwise we couldn't boot up to this menu. But our disks here, we are going uh, to reformat so it looks like this with just free space and nothing else. And then we're going to add both of them as a boot device. So that'll be the next thing. So we see add as another boot device. Oh, this is interesting. This is probably where I went wrong. Oh no, it's not. So let's take a look at some identifiers here to make sure we know whether we're using one or the other. So we're going to go with the last three digits to identify the disk, 03N. So we can see on 03N, um, we're going to select use as a boot device. Um, and then for 09T, we're going to add use as another boot device. But we're only going to do that until for 09T we've reformatted it so that it looks like this, where it has no partitions and just free space for the whole for pretty much the whole size of the drive. There's going to be some, like to display this identifier, it's going to take up a little space on the drive to be able to run in this utility. There's a little space taken up on the drive, so it's going to be pretty much the full drive, but not all of it. So so yeah, let's get there. Let's take a look at where I am now, and let's get there. So I will start the oops, and and it looks like my display capture is not set up correctly. Oh, it is. Okay. All right. Not sure what's going on here. Oh, okay. It looks like it's good. Not sure what that was about. But anyway, here's what I got. So I've been fiddling around with this a lot. Let's just get to where we are in the guide right now. So we're gonna go to so I've got two disks. I've got 052 and I've got 082. Um, now what's interesting is I don't have the USB up in that part like he does. I only have it down there. Uh, so that could be one thing that we need to do is uh, yeah, that could be one reason that it's going wrong. So it's my USB is showing up under my used devices, but not under my available devices, which I would think is what you would want. But anyways, let's go reformat this, and then let's see if we can reformat that. I don't think so. Yeah, we'll reformat that. Okay, so now we should be where he is in the guide. We've got 052, which has just been reformatted, so I don't have the option to do that again. Then we have 842, which again we don't have the option to reformat that because it's already been reformatted. So now we just have these blocks here with almost the whole drive, but 0.003 missing. Now, one thing I noticed that is kind of concerning here is one of them is an SD Ultra, and the other one of them is an SD Ultra 3D, and the other one is a SanDisk SD SSD. So that's a little bit concerning because if we go back to the guide, and I turn there we go, turn the video capture device off, um, we can see that the identifiers of the disk are exactly the same. So in the guide, we've got um, 03N, which I mean the specific identifier for the drive itself is going to be different, but everything else to the left is listed exactly. So that's a bit worrisome. That's the first sticking point, perhaps. That I bought the wrong drive, but I didn't know how to buy the right drive. So I feel like the only way to buy the right drive and have them match exactly is to buy two in one buying instance. Because you come back and buy another one 5, 10 years later, even if it's the exact same make and model, it might be a different version. But anyways, so yeah, so now the next step is we're gonna in the installer it says for each SSD. So we're gonna do this for 052 and for 842. So let's enable the camera here, and then we're gonna add them as root devices. So let's go back to the guide and see how to do that. Okay, so we go to this one here, not the free space, and we select as add as a boot device. If we look at the free space, we don't have that option. All we can do is add a partition. So let's do that for both of these, and then this one add as another. All right, and then let's look at the guide again. All right, so the guide. So the next thing, now that we've added both of them, so in the guide it's 03N and 09T. Now we go to the next step, which will be going to the partition on them. So we've got 03N has a partition primary ESP to be formatted as FAT32 mounted at EFI. So that's going to be changed and edited. Um, so let's get that far. Let's go into my first drive and go into the edit menu. All right, so the name of my first drive on there is, unfortunately, it's SD Ultra 3D. It doesn't match the SanDisk, so that's kind of annoying, but hopefully it's fine. Let's take a look back in the guide and see whether we select the partition or the main disk. Okay, so we select the partition. All right, so move down here and we'll get to the edit menu. There we go. And now we're in the edit menu. So let's go back to the guide and see what to do. Okay, so after we're in the edit menu, the next screenshot says downloader partition. This is an ESP/EFI system partition as required by UEFI. As this disk has been selected as a boot device, Grub will be installed onto this partition, which must be formatted as FAT32. The only aspect of this drive that can be edited is the size. Um, so yeah, so take a close look here. Make sure everything's good, sounds good. So we can see 532. Now this is the key. Format is FAT32. Mount is other boot EFI. So let's go back to my device. And now we can see all the text is different. So the text says bootloader partition, as this disk has been selected as a boot device, Grub will be installed into the target disk's MBR. And we know from my series on the LPIC 1 exam 101, we don't want MBR. We want UETF. So already right there off the bat, I don't know why it's talking about the MBR and why I can't choose between one or the other. But anyways, it goes on to say, however, on a disk with a GPT partition table, there is not enough space after the MBR for Grub to store its second stage core image. So a small uncommitted partition is needed at the start of the disk. It will not contain a file system and will not be mounted and cannot be edited here. So we can see there's some problem where it's dead set on using the MBR, master boot record, rather than the unified whatever, I forget the acronym. So yeah, we can see here the EFI system partition. So there's something about the disks in the guide that allow for them to be used for UETF booting rather than MBR booting. So that's a mystery I need to figure out. Why in my system is it hell bent on using MBR rather than UETF? So let's look at the guide one more time. So yeah, we can see this is an ESP slash EFI system partition as required by UEFI. But we can see that's quite a bit different than the message I see here, where this disk has been selected as a boot device. Grub will be installed into the target disk's MBR. So it's the difference between MBR and UETF. The disks in the guide are happy to accept UETF, but the disks on my machine are only able to accept MBR, and that's surprising to me. I really don't understand why that is the case. Okay, so that's something I've got to figure out. Um, so let's do this. So let's figure this out. Okay, let's figure this out. Okay, so to figure it out, we're definitely going to go to ChatGPT, probably one of the best resources you can use. We're going to say, first of all, let's write down where we're at so far. Um, so let's give it some screenshots from the guide. Let's say I'm attempting to follow this guide. Uh, so we're gonna put this here, and we're gonna say, hello, I'm attempting to make the configuration changes shown in this guide. Okay, but on my disks, but my disks are not a ESP, EFI, but my disks, but my disks can only be set up as MBR, not UEFI. Do you know why is this the case? This the case? How can I change them to accept UEFI to be UEFI? So let's start there. And we're going to use Chat GPT o3 Mini High, which does chain of thought reasoning, which does add quite a bit of time to it. So we could switch and use 4.5. I've had decent success with 4.5, and 4.5 takes a lot less time. So let's do that. It's just going to take too long, and we're not going to get any better results. All right, and we can go back and look at what the results were. It looks like they were, yeah, it looks like they are ready for O3 Mini High. So, yeah. Okay, so here we go. It looks like the disk was previously initialized as MBR and never converted to GPT. So I think that's something we're going to have to do is convert it to GPT. So let's take a look at my setup and see if I'm able to do that. So yeah, so we do have the option here to add a GPT partition. So I think that's something missing from the guide. So let's try to start over. We're going to reformat each as it says in the guide. Now we're going to use both as a boot device as it says in the guide. But now we're going to add another step. We're going to add a GPT partition. Uh, and we're going to make it 512 megs. We're going to use ext4. We're going to mount it to boot's EFI. Okay, and we'll do that for each. Aha, and here's the other big issue I'm having. So the guide says to do all of this for both disks. Now we can see up here, I'm doing this on disk 842, but for some reason, because disk 052 is already mounted, um, it's not letting me do that. So I think that that's the answer right there. So let's go back and reformat everything. Okay, and then let's go and add a GPT partition. And let's change this mount to leave unmounted. and then we'll do 512 because it says that later in the guide. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. We'll add a GPT partition. We'll leave unmounted. .512. Okay, and I know how to do this because it said this in the guide. So okay, so now let's add. So now, oh yeah, so now they're already added as a boot device. So we'll add this second one as another one. There we go. So now we've got 052 and 842 added as boot devices. So now we should be able to go in. So same difference. We can see it's hell bent on being a MBR. We don't want it to be an MBR. We want it to be EFI. So let's go back to ChatGPT. So it looks like the problem is my system firmware is set to the wrong mode. So which firmware on what system? Okay, and this is mini high, so it's very slow. Um, okay, so yeah, we are going to have to reformat these disks. It looks like when I wrote all zeros to the disk, it made it so that the disks could only do MBR. So what I'm going to have to do is pull the disk out again, put them back in the toaster. Now, there's probably an easier way. Um, for example, if I boot from my Linux installer USB and then choose try Ubuntu, then I can use the Ubuntu utilities for this. But you know what? I'm very comfortable with Rufus. Uh, so let's just use Rufus because Rufus will make this pretty easy. All right, so I'm gonna use Rufus. I'll do that off camera because I think it's pretty clear what what I need to do with that. I just need to pull them. I've used Rufus in other videos, so I just need to pull them, run them through Rufus, and I just need to make sure that I'm selecting the uh, that I'm making sure that it's not set to legacy/BIOS mode, and it's set to UEFI mode. So you know what? I can do this. This is not a big deal. I can definitely do this on Rufus. So let's do this on Rufus. All right. So I'm just getting my toaster out. I'm shutting down the other my T5600. Shutting that down. All right, now I'm going to plug in my toaster to the power strip. All right, and then plug it in via USB to a 3.0 slot. Although last time when I wrote all zeros to my disk, it did take about 6 hours per disk. So this next step might take a while. All right, so now I just got to wait for this computer to power down. All right, so it's powered down. So we'll open the case. I've done this in countless other videos, so I think there's no reason to take a video of this. All right, and we're going to start with one of the discs and do the other disc afterwards because my toaster only has one slot. And I do want to make a correction. I said in one of my other videos that I worked at a data recovery company, and they were just using basic toasters. That is true. They had basic cheap toasters that they were using, but they were using it for, basic simple things like just reading, the data on the drive. For things like zeroing out a drive, which on my toaster took about 6 to 7 hours. Yes, they did have high tech custom built solutions. They're still able to do it on pretty affordable gear, but they had a full-time computer scientist with a high salary that custom wrote the software to do that. So I don't want to give the wrong impression that you can, start your own data recovery company if you just own a dinky toaster. You can do simple things. You can even zero out a disk if you have 6 to 7 hours to spare. But yeah, these professional companies do have, expensive professional gear. So I just felt like I kind of gave uh, a misimpression when I said that in the last video. All right, so let's get Rufus running. Okay, and I can close all these now because this is where I zeroed out all the disks. All right, so we'll open up Rufus and then select the device. So, huh. So the device is not available to select. Let's click this list USB hard drives, and here we go. So we've got the 1 TB drive, which is exactly what we're looking for. Aha! And here we can see quite clearly MBR is the partition scheme on it. So we've got to change that so that it's UEFI somehow. Okay, so I think this is how we do it. We change it to grub. Or this is we can just change it to UEFI. Ah, there we go. Look, look, look. This is it. This is it. Got it. So let's run this through ChatGPT, get a second opinion, and we'll utilize one of the pre-existing chats that we've got up. Okay, so we'll say okay. So is this how I do it? Do it. Can you please review the settings and tell me if I need to change anything? All right, and we could ask that to 4 or 5, but I think this is probably worth waiting for because this is not just like a small thing. We got to get these right, so we'll give it some time to think. The thing I'm not sure about is the file system and the cluster size, and also checking for bad blocks. Should we do that? Okay, specifically, should I change the file system and cluster size, and should I check for bad blocks? All right, and there's one more thing I remember from working at the data recovery company. This cluster size actually does matter when it comes to recovering your data. So if something goes wrong with your disk, you want this cluster size to have been as large as possible. Otherwise, your data is scattered all throughout the disk, and it's harder for it to be recovered. So we can see that the default is the largest size. Oh, sorry, it's not the largest size available. So there are some disadvantages for it to be larger, but when it comes to data recovery, you do want to have a larger size. So so um, so NFS is ideal if your ISO or files exceed 4 GB. If everything fits under, you prefer FAT32, and you prefer FAT32, you could switch. But Rufus's is designed to work around uh, FAT32 limitations automatically. So I'm going to be installing. I'm going to be installing Ubuntu Server 24 LTS. Knowing this, should I use um, FAT32? Okay, and while that's working, we'll go up here. So cluster size is usually optimal. Don't need to change it, so we'll just leave that. This option is generally not required unless I suspect it's faulty. I don't suspect it's faulty, and it's just going to slow me down, and I don't suspect it's faulty. Okay, so it's thinking about that. Okay, let's use FAT32 because that's what's in the guide, so we can see before to be formatted as FAT. So let's use FAT32. So we don't have the ability to use FAT32. Oh, you know what? But we could just use grub. Let's just use boot selection grub. But then we only have MBR. Okay, so let's not use that. Let's use UEFI, GPT, UEFI non-CSM. I think we can use one or the other. So I think these are good. I think these are good. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. Boom. Okay, so this will destroy all data on the device. I wrote zeros to the device in about 12 to 18 hours yesterday, so there's nothing to erase. All right, so now, oh, E is not accessible. Parameters incorrect. Okay. Uh, let's use disk part. Yeah, let's use disk part and take a look at the details of this disk. So we're going to do list disk in disk part. Okay, so now we've got yeah, so we've got both of my drives. Let's select disk 2. We're going to say detail disk. All right, so now we can see this is a yeah, this is an AS Media SCSI disk device. Yeah, this is letter E, so this is the one. So now we can see a NFS, we see a fat partition. So I think everything worked. So yeah, this one's good. It's now time to move on to the next disk. And again, these steps are missing from the guide. I'm kind of not sure why, but I think the guide presumes that you're using freshly bought discs, and they'll probably come set up. So me, I'm not using that. So my disc that's freshly bought from Amazon, which might be the second one here, we'll see, is probably good to go, but we'll see. All right, so I can close that, and okay, and then we'll do Rufus again. Let's close Rufus and restart it just because. Okay, so now I'm more confident that we'll get the right disk in there. Okay, yeah, and this one was for MBR as well. We'll change it to UEFI. GPT. Good. Sorry, I gag. In the mornings, I typically have to gag a lot. I don't know why. It's annoying. All right, so then we've got uh, all of this the same. And now I notice we can't unselect quick format. I'm not sure what's going on there. That's different from the other one where we could select that, but it looks like it's grayed out to the option we would have wanted to select anyway. So that looks good. So let's do it. All right, so that's ready. So now we can close Rufus, and now I can take it out of the toaster. Don't want the toaster just cluttering up my desk, so I'll put it away, unplug it from the power strip, unplug it from the computer, put it away in a cardboard box with a bunch of other crap on it. Uh, okay, and now I've got my two discs here, so I'll plug them both into the T5600. All right, got one plugged into the power, and the other, now I need to plug in data. All right, there we go, data. There we go, data, and the other one, a little bit difficult to plug in there, but I got it done. So now I'll put the case back on, or the case lid back on. There we go, plugged in there nice and easy, and now I'll turn it on and hopefully we'll get better results this time. All right, so now I can I can turn that camera on, and we're booting up here. Things look good. My USB drive is still, sorry, yep, still plugged in. So the fans are messed up. I don't know what's going on. Took the case off while it was running, and the fans are spinning. So I don't know what this issue is, but they're spinning. So I'll just ignore the issue and continue. All right, so now we're gonna try or install Ubuntu Server, just like it says in the guide. All right, so it's taking a bit longer than usual. I'll look at the guide while that's going. So stop the camera, take a look at the guide. So this is interesting that it's just kind of hanging out now because all I did was change those disks and like, oh, okay, good, good. We've got the, okay, so I'll on now we've got the scrolling text, which is good. Just took a little while longer. Okay, we're going to use English. We're going to enable this, even though it goes against the philosophy of only using open source and not using any third-party proprietary code of any kind. Then we're going to put on a static IP, set this to manual. So subnet is 192.168.5.0/24. Address 192.168.5.2.1 is taken up by the pfSense. Gateway, the pfSense, so that's going to be 192.5.1. Name servers, we'll get that from the pfSense box, so 192.5.1. Oh, 192.168. Yeah, and I kind of typed that in automatically without thinking, so just threw me for a loop there. Double check that everything's in right, because if it's wrong, that's going to be hours gone of troubleshooting. And looks good. So, oops, so we can't do continue without network. We got to get a network connection. Okay, so it just took a little bit of time to ARP and form that connection. So now we can click done instead of continue without network. Proxy address, not using a proxy, move on. Mirror address, we'll go with the default mirror. Now it could be better to use a closer mirror. The UT, I'm in Austin, Texas, so I know that there's a mirror in UT. But both mirror locations failed the tests. So I don't want to use an alternative mirror. I want to use the default mirror because I'm just afraid it's going to be more difficult to troubleshoot if I do that. So we're going to continue on without completing the test because I know the test will fail, and we're just going to use the default mirror. The guide says nothing about this, unfortunately, but and then the Snap Store will continue without updating. We'll use a custom storage layout that's very clearly in the guide. Aha! So here we are. Now we're back to the guide. So let's look at the guide. Okay, so we selected custom storage layout. Aha, and look, now it says unused ESP already formatted as VFAT. So now we don't have anything that says unused ESP, unfortunately, but we do have something that says already formatted as VFAT, which is probably a better place to be. Um, yeah, so we're missing this unused ESP line, but the next step is to reformat all of these. So let's go and do that. Okay, so we're going to select this and we're going to select reformat. There we go. And we'll select this and we'll select reformat. Looks good. So now we'll go back and look at what's next in the guide. So there we go, reformat both disks, perfect. Now we're going to select use as a boot device, and we're going to do that on the main here for each of them. So let's do that. So we don't do it in the free space, we do it in the main one here. All right, so let's now go look at the next step. Okay, so now we go down to the partitions. We got two partitions on here. It says primary ESP. That's kind of worrisome. Uh, but yeah, so let's go down to the one that says mounted at and click edit. Okay, so unfortunately we've already got a snag here. We don't have one that says the mounted at or anything like that. So let's go in and try to click edit. Aha, and we're still in that same situation. Um, it's hell bent on making it MBR rather than yeah, it's hell bent on making it MBR. What? Okay, so now we've got for disk 052, we've got some configuration on there. So let's add this next one. Yeah, and we've got that same issue. For some reason, the configuration on 052 is affecting the configuration of 053. We can't do both. And the guide is very clear. You do these for each disk. So the guide really has nothing to say about the idea of not being able to do the same thing on each disk. Yeah, so we can't make the mount point the same. All right, so that yeah, it's hell-bent on making it the UEFI, even though we went in Rufus and changed that. The reformatting made it so that it had to be UEFI. So maybe we could try it again in Rufus and then skip the reformatting step, because when we reformat it, it makes it so that this can only be used as as MBR rather than UEFI. Yeah, so there's something is missing from this guide. Yeah, so we can see clearly it's doing this for each drive, and all it has is the single partition with the free space. So we weren't able to do that. We got error messages when we did that because this it's hell bent on making it an MBR rather than an ESP. So for some reason it's not an ESP. So when we reformatted the disk, it changed it into an MBR rather than ESP. Yeah, and it says very clear for each SSD. Yeah, so we don't have an automatically created EFI partition because it's uh, it's going to use EFI MBR instead. So when we go into this, um, all of this is different. This ESP we don't have available. Yeah, so if your disk was previously formatted or initialized in legacy mode, the installer might default to that mode. So I think we can do it. We've just gotta go back to using the toaster, and we've got to after we set it up in Rufus to be UEFI, we need to skip that step of reformatting the disk because then we put it back to the MBR mode. Um, Another thing we could probably do, let's try this. I think this would be better. Let's go into the oh, and you know what we can do is do reset. There's an option to reset. So let me try the aha. So this is good news. So I hit the option to reset, and now it's back to what it was like when it came out of Rufus. But it's still no good. So let's try to get into the BIOS and see if we can modify these disks in the BIOS. I think that'll help. So I just hit enter there. I just want to get into the BIOS. Okay, so the computer shut down. So now I'll turn it back on, and I think it's F12. That'll get me back into the BIOS. All right, I had to push the power button 3 times to get it to actually spin up. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but the amber lights are now on. I mean, it doesn't happen instantaneously. There we go. So F12 will take us to boot options. So I'm hitting F12, and now it says preparing one-time boot menu. Uh, okay, we'll just hit F1 to go past that. And there we go. Now we've got the one-time boot menu. So we see we do have UEFI boot. Let's look at that. Oh, okay. So now it's let's go down to UEFI firmware settings. So it says reboot to firmware setup is not supported by current firmware. So it looks like my firmware doesn't support UEFI. I'm using Grub version 2.12. Uh, I'm pretty sure I saw that in Rufus. Shoot, I wanted to go into the BIOS. I'm gonna turn it off again. Wait a few seconds or a few minutes, and then turn it back on. And then I guess I'll try to get into the BIOS. It's F2. The boot menu was not the right thing. F2, F8, I'll span that. F10. Okay, so now it says preparing to enter setup rather than preparing to enter one-time boot menu. So even though it didn't list the F key that I would press, just pressing. So now I'm going to press F2 to get into the setup option. Aha, so now we're in the BIOS. So let's see here. Virtualization support. Let's see what that says. Yep, so it's virtualization's enabled. That's going to be important. Um, don't know about that. Just leave that. Let's look at system configuration. Now I notice this is interesting. The HGD1 fan is not enabled, so that could be the fan problem. Okay, so we've got these drives in here now. So that's close, but no cigar. RAID is enabled. That'll be important. All right, everything looks good here. All right, so I don't see what the problem could be here. Now we did see that it was Grub Grub version uh 2.12. So 2.12 I think was an option in Rufus. So let's just pull the drives again, reformat it to Grub 2.12, and see if that works. I feel like that's as good of a solution as any. So let me do that again. So the computer's powered down, so I'll open the case. Oh, the computer's not powered down. So I'll power down the computer somehow. All right, now the computer's powered down. All right, so I'll do this one at a time. Yeah, and the thing is, like those fans are spinning. I guess one of the fans wasn't spinning, but um, okay. So now set up the toaster again. I put it away too soon. All right, so let's get Rufus. All right, so Rufus is now failing to open. I'm not sure why it was opening fine before, but just all of a sudden it's now failing to open. So it might be already open, but not display. Okay, there we go. Now it's open. So we got to list USB hard drives. So we got to click that. There we go. And now we've got the drive. Okay, try to open it twice. Can only open it once. Weird. Now it can't. Oh, yeah, here it is. So yeah, grub 212. Let's try that. Partition scheme. Ah, shit. MBR. There we go. Grub 212. Uh, target system. Type of computer you plan to use this bootable drive with. It is your responsibility to determine whether your target is of BIOS or UEFI type. So we're going to have UEFI type. What does this say? Method that will be used to create partitions, MBR. So that's not good. That's not good at all. So create an extra hidden partition and try to align partition boundaries. Can improve. Let's not do that. NTFS. We also have. Let's do FAT32. International labels. Uh, no, we don't need that. I hate how this is MBR. All right, well, let's go with Grub. Let's go with, we'll have to leave that to MBR, but the good news is the target system does use UEFI. We'll change this to, oops, and looks like this box got unchecked somehow. All right, change this to FAT32. We don't need those extended ones. We don't need the fixes. So let's do that. Give this a shot. Yep, we're going to destroy all the data. That's good. Could not open media. It might be in use by another process. Please replug the media and try again. Huh. Okay, well, I can do that. All right, so that worked better. Ah, see, now it's writing the master boot record. Screw that. I don't want it to do that. Anyways, we'll try it. So close it, swap out for the other disk, and we'll give it a shot. Okay, now my menu is not opening. Okay, there it is. Rufus. The other thing we can try is this quick format. We can try the slow format. That might work better. Yeah, this writing master boot record, I'm not happy with that. It yeah, I'm not happy with that, but let's give it a try now. I have a feeling it won't work. All right, so now I'm booting up the computer. We don't need to go into the BIOS, nothing to do there. We just need to go into the installer. All right, hit the power button, nothing happened, so let's hit it again. Yeah, nothing happened again, so let's hit it a third time. For some reason, you have to hit it 3 times. Okay, and now it works after hitting it 3 times. All right, still got the fan issue, so I'll hit F1 to ignore it. Uh, oh, this is interesting. It took me to the BIOS. Well, I don't need to be in the BIOS, so I'll hit Escape to get out of the BIOS. All right, now the computer just died, so let me hit the power button again, bring it back up. Boot options are still set up correct, so it should boot to the USB drive. USB drive is still plugged in cleanly. All right, CPU fan 1 failure. To continue, press F1. So I'm pushing that. All right, so now we're in Grub. Perfect. So try or install with Ubuntu server. Okay, and now this takes a fair bit of time if you reformat the disks. Waiting for Cloud Init. All right. Entering in the IP information. All right, so hopefully things are good to go now. Uh, Adding both as a boot device. Oh, but now it didn't. Hitting reformat. Adding as boot device. All right, going down and editing that. Ah, same thing. Man, it's like, why is it stuck as a MBR? Let's have a natural language conversation with, let's have like an actual conversation with ChatGPT. Hey, what's up? Are you there?
Hey, I'm here. What's up?
So I'm installing Ubuntu Server LTS version 24.02. I'm in the storage configuration menu. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, definitely. The storage configuration menu in Ubuntu Server is where you set up your disk partitions. Are you going with the default settings, or do you have something specific in mind?
I have something very specific in mind. I'm following a guide that is very specific.
Got it. Are you creating a custom partition layout?
Yes.
Nice. What's the plan? Separate partitions for root, home, and maybe a swap?
I'm just trying to. So the plan is to turn these two disks. I've got SanDisk 1 TB SSDs, and I tried to get them matching, but unfortunately, one says it's a SD Ultra 3D, and the other one says it's a SanDisk SD SSD H3. So I'm not sure if they're exactly matching. What do you think?
Even if they're not exactly the same model, they can still work together. Are you planning to set them up in a RAID array, or just use them as separate disks?
Yeah, I'm planning to set them up in a RAID array. Anyway, are you still there? This happens a lot. It just flakes out, but you can just restart and get to where you have. Are you still there?
Yep, still here. What's your plan for those SSDs?
So my plan is, so the guide says what you should do is you should reformat them. So you go, so remove all partitions from local disk. Do you really want to remove all partitions? Reformat. So you should do that with both of them. And then where it gets tricky is the guide says the next step is to use as boot device for one disk, and then to select add as another boot device for the other disk. And then where there's a problem is you go down in the use devices section and you go down to the partition you created. You go to edit, and now the guide says that the disk is set up for ESP, but it differs from what I have on my screen. On my screen, it says um, Grub will be installed into the target disk's MBR. So I don't have the option to make it an ESP.
That difference might be because your disks are set up with an MBR partition table instead of GPT. To use ESP, the disk typically needs a GPT partition table. Would you like to convert the disks to GPT, or stick with MBR and set up Grub there?
I want to follow the guide exactly, so I want to convert them to GPT.
Alright, to convert them to GPT, you'll need to remove all existing partitions first. Then, you can use a tool like Gdisk to switch from MBR to GPT. Ready to give that a shot?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. After you've removed the partitions, you can run gdisk and follow the prompts to convert each disk to GPT. Then you should be able to set up your ESP partition. Need a hand with the commands?
Yeah, how do I run gdisk?
Alright, to run gdisk, open your terminal and type sudo gdisk/dev/sdx, replacing sdx with your actual disk identifier. Then, follow the on-screen instructions to convert it to GPT. Remember to write the changes before exiting.
Oh, how do I open a terminal from the storage configuration menu of Ubuntu?
In the Ubuntu server installer, you can typically open a shell by pressing Ctrl-Alt-F2. That should bring up a terminal where you can run the gdisk command. When you're done, you can return to the installer by pressing Ctrl-Alt-F1.
Oh, sweet, it worked. It worked. Awesome.
Great! Now that you're in the terminal, you can start the conversion process. Just remember to apply the changes when you're done.
Yeah,
Need any more guidance?
I'm making an educational YouTube video about this, so let me just show my users what happened quick.
Awesome! Take your time, and let me know when you're ready to move on to the next step.
All right, so to my subscribers, I hit Control Alt F2, and I got to this command shell here. So now we're gonna run commands to convert this disk to be compatible for UEFI rather than having to be MBR. So are you ready now, ChatGPT?
Ready when you are. Let's get that disk converted to GPT.
Okay, so the command is gdisk.
That's right. So type sudo gdisk/dev/sdx with your disk identifier. Then follow the prompts to convert it to GPT.
Okay, and SDX, I need to fill in the X with whatever identifies my disk, right?
Exactly. Replace SDX with the actual identifier of the disk you're converting, like SDA or SDB.
All right, and how do I determine the identifier?
You can use the command lsblank to list all your disks and their identifiers. It'll show you a list, and you can find the correct one by the size.
And what was that? That was LSBLK?
Yep, exactly. Just type lsblk and hit enter.
Okay, I'm going to show this to my viewers because this is important because if you do it with the wrong disk, if you do it with your boot disk by accident, you're screwed, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's crucial to double check that you're working with the correct disk to avoid any mishaps.
All right, so to my subscribers, you can see it said LS blank, but I just know because I'm not an old grandma when it comes to Linux. I'm certified for the essentials, and I'm working on the LPIC one, so I know that the command is LSBLK. So now we can see we've got SD. Sorry, you see my finger there. We've got SDA, SDB, and SDC. We can see SDC is only about 30 gigs. So SDC is my installer drive. We don't want to mess with SDB or we can't get to this boot up. Sorry, we don't want to mess with SDC. So we have to be very careful to enter either SDB or SDA. But now that we've identified it, it should be pretty simple. So ChatGPT, are you ready to continue?
Absolutely. Now that you've identified the correct disk, go ahead and run sudo gdisk/dev/sdx, replacing SDX with the identifier.
Okay, so I'm going to start with SDA.
Perfect. Once you run that command, you'll see a prompt asking if you want to convert the disk to GPT. Just follow the steps.
Okay, and I'm going to show this to my users here quick.
Sounds good. Let me know if any questions come up while you're showing them the process.
All right, so to my subscribers, we can see I did sudo gdisk slash, which is a typo, so command not found. So it's sudo space gdisk space, and then the path to the disk. So we're starting with SDA. So we've got a partition table scan, so we can see it's set up for MBR only. So GPT is not present. So we gotta convert it. So it says found invalid GPT, invalid MBR. So converting MBR to GPT format in memory. This operation is potentially destructive. Exit by typing Q if you don't want to convert your MBR partitions to GPT. Now, we do want to do that, so let's go back to working with ChatGPT and figure out how to do this properly. So are you ready, ChatGPT?
Absolutely. Once you're ready to proceed, you'll confirm the conversion. Just follow the prompts to write the changes, and you'll be all set.
Okay, so it says command and then it says question mark for help. So what do I write? I'll do the question mark.
Good call. Typing question mark will show you a list of available commands. You'll want to use W to write the changes to the disk once you're ready.
All right, I'll show that to my users quick, or my subscribers quick.
Sounds good. Let me know if you need any more guidance after that.
All right, so to my subscribers, I hit question mark for help. I got all the commands, and then ChatGPT said use the command W, write table to disk, and exit, which is kind of yeah. So let's do that.
Exactly. Go ahead and type W to write the changes. It'll ask for confirmation, so just confirm, and you'll be all set with your new GPT table.
Perfect. So we got a confirmation message. It says, okay, writing new GUID partition table, GPT, to the disk. Your operation is now completed successfully. Perfect.
Awesome. Now that the disk is converted to GPT, you can head back to the installer and continue with the setup. Ready to move on?
Yeah, so I'm doing it to the second disk, and I'm careful not to do it to the third disk because that would blow away things. So I did it to SBA and SBB, and I'm ready to move on.
Great job. Now that both disks are set up with GPT, you can continue with the installation. What's the next step in your guide?
Well, I have to get out of this command line, right? So I hit Control Alt F1. Is that right?
Exactly. Press Ctrl Alt F1 to return to the installer. Then you can pick up where you left off.
All right, let me update my subscribers quick.
Go for it. I'll be here when you're ready to continue.
All right, so to my subscribers, I hit Control Alt F1, and that put me back in the storage configuration menu that we can see on the screen there. So now we're going to go with the guide. So these have already been reformatted, so we're going to add them both as boost devices, which I remember from the guide. Now we're going to go back down here. We're going to hit Edit. And so we still got the same problem. As this disk has been selected as a boot device, Grub will be installed into the target disk's MBR. However, on a disk with a GPT partition table, there is not enough space after the MBR for Grub to store its second stage core.img. So a small unformatted partition is needed at the start of the disk. It will not contain a file system and will not be mounted, and cannot be edited here. So not good. It doesn't match the guide. It's hell bent on making it an MBR, but the guide has it for an ESP. So our conversion that we did with Control F2 with GDisk, that didn't work. All right, so ChatGPT, are you ready to assist further? Are you still there? All right, this happens a lot. ChatGPT just kind of shits the bed. So all you have to do is exit out and go back in. And as long as you're still able to use 4.5, then you're good. Um, so sometimes you can't switch models, sometimes, but okay, so we're back. So none of that worked. The GDisk didn't work. It's still hell bent on making it a MBR rather than an ESP.
Got it. If the installer is still defaulting to MBR, you might need to create the ESP partition manually in the partition manager. Do you want to try that?
I mean, yeah, we can try that.
All right. In the partition manager, you can create a new partition on each disk. Set the type to EFI system. That should create the ESP partitions. Ready to give it a shot?
Yeah, so we got to go back to Control Alt F2.
Exactly. That'll take you back to the terminal. Then you can use a tool like fdisk or parted to create the partitions.
All right, let's use fdisk.
All right. To create an EFI partition with fdisk, you'll open the terminal and type sudo fdisk/dev/sdx. Then you can create a new partition and set the type to EFI.
Okay, we're going to start with SDA.
Perfect. Once you're in fdisk, you can delete any existing partitions if needed, then create a new one by pressing N. Make sure to set the type to EFI system by typing T and then selecting the correct code.
What partition number should we give it? The default of 2?
The default should be fine if it's the second partition. After creating it, just set the type to EFI system and you'll be good to go.
All right, when I selected 2, it says that there's not enough free sectors available.
Got it. You might need to adjust the size or delete an existing partition to free up space. Would you like to resize or remove a partition first?
Yeah, let's just remove all the partitions.
All right. In fdisk, you can delete partitions using the D command. Just do that for each partition until they're all removed. Then create the new EFI partition.
All right, and then the first sector, the default is 2048. How does that sound? We can set it as low as 34.
2048 is a good default. It's usually recommended to leave some space at the beginning. So let's go with that.
Yeah, but you just got to leave the space for the MBR, right? If we're not using the MBR, we don't have to use the space. And now we're out 2048 space on the disk.
True. If you're not using MBR, you can start earlier. Setting it to 34 is fine if you want to maximize space.
I'm setting it to 34.
Perfect. Now set the last sector and then the type to EFI.
All right, so the last sector, that's pretty self-explanatory. The default is the final sector number, so we're going to go with the default so that we get the full disk.
Sounds good. That way you'll use the entire disk space. After that, you'll just set the type to EFI system and you're all set.
Cool. So do we have to, what do we do next? We hit W?
Before you hit W, you need to change the type. You can do that by pressing T, then selecting the EFI code. Once that's done, W will write everything to disk.
All right, so I'm gonna just hit T and enter. It says partition type or alias, type L to list all, so I'm typing L. And there are quite a bit to choose from. Which one do we pick?
Look for the EFI system partition type, which usually has a code like EF00 or similar. Select that one.
All right, so that looks like it's number 1. That's easy enough.
Perfect. Select that, and then you'll be good to go. After that, just write the changes with W.
Beautiful. This is awesome. So let's see what it says. It says the partition table has been altered. Calling IOCTL to reread partition table, syncing disks.
Awesome. That means the partition changes are saved. Now you can return to the installer and continue with setting up the boot configuration.
Well, I got to do it with the second disk, right?
Yes, you'll want to repeat the same steps for the second disk. Once both have EFI partitions, you should be all set.
Okay, so now I can hit Control F1, right?
Exactly. Press Ctrl Alt F1 to get back to the installer and continue from there.
Okay, so now what do? I reformat? That's what the guide says to do.
Yes, back in the installer, you can reformat the partitions to set them up as EFI. The installer should now recognize them and let you proceed with the boot configuration.
Same thing. It's saying the disk has been selected as a boot device. Grub will be installed onto the target disk's MBR. So I thought I was running Grub 12 2.12. So like I don't know what's the issue. Like we did it. We did everything.
It might be a UEFI versus legacy boot setting. Check your BIOS UEFI settings to ensure UEFI mode is enabled. That should prompt the installer to recognize the EFI partitions correctly.
Do you think it's because I didn't format it to FAT32?
That's possible. EFI partitions typically need to be formatted as FAT32. You can reformat them to FAT32 and then retry the installation.
All right, I'm going back into Control Alt F2.
Sounds like a plan. Once you're in the terminal, you can use mkfs.fat-f32 to format the partition.
MKFS what?
You'll use mkfs.fat-f32/dev/sdx is your EFI partition.
So MKFS space dot FAT space dash F32 space what else?
Then add the path like dev/sda1, for example, which points to your EFI partition.
Invalid. Do I have the spacing correct?
It should be mkfs.fat-f32/dev/sda1. Make sure there's no space between the device path and the command.
Can't we just use Gdisk? What was the problem with Gdisk?
Gdisk set up the partition table, but formatting the partition with FAT32 is needed for EFI. mkfs.fat handles that.
Do I have to do a dash M?
You shouldn't need -M. Just -F32 and the device path should do it.
Dash F32. I don't see that in the help menu.
If -F32 isn't showing up, try mkfs.vfat instead. The syntax is similar. Sudo mkfs.vfat/dev/sda1.
Wait, I see it now. So it's a dash capital F space 32.
Great. Use F32 with a capital F and you should be all set to format the partition.
All right, let me show my viewers that because that's pretty tricky.
Absolutely. Take your time. It's great to show those details. Let me know how it goes.
All right, so it's to my subscribers. You can see I had trouble understanding what the command was, but the command is going to be mkfs.fat space dash capital F. So you can always tell if you look at the help menu, we can see dash capital F is the size. Select fat size. We've got 12, 16, or 32, so we're selecting 32. So it's space 32, and then space the path to the disk. So it looks like that's done. So all we have to do is up arrow and do it to SDB1. And then hopefully everything will be good after that. So ChatGPT, you ready to continue?
Absolutely. Once both partitions are formatted, head back to the installer and it should recognize them as EFI. Ready to move forward?
Yeah, so I'm hitting Control Alt F1. Then I'm going to custom storage input. Then it says so. Then I'll hit reformat, like the guide tells me to hit. Although I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Then I'll hit add as use as boot device. I use as another boot device. Then I'll go down, hit edit, and same deal. It's not working. It still wants it to be a MBR.
Got it. Let's double check the BIOS UEFI settings to ensure UEFI mode is enabled. That might resolve the issue.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so I'm gonna power down my computer.
All right. After you restart, enter your BIOS UEFI settings and make sure UEFI mode is enabled.
Yeah, I was in the BIOS before, and I guess I wasn't sure what to look for, but it should be clear now.
No worries. Look for settings like boot mode or UEFI/legacy. Make sure it's set to UEFI and then save and exit.
Yeah, I think that's what the problem is.
It sounds like a likely fix. Once you've changed that setting, the installer should recognize the partitions correctly.
And I could not even begin to do this without you. Thanks so much.
Happy to help. Once you get everything set up, you should be good to go. Let me know how it turns out.
All right, so let me talk to my viewers again quick.
Take your time. I'll be here if you need anything else.
All right, so to my subscribers, I booted up to that menu that said press F12 for one-time boot up menu. I hit F2 and F8 instead to try to get into the BIOS. So now I'm at alert CPU 1 fan failure, so we'll just skip that. Um, and we'll monitor the temperatures later to make sure that the fans are not heating up. Now there we go, found it. So notice how this boot sequence here, um, it's set to boot list option is set to legacy rather than UEFI. So boom, ChatGPT was absolutely right. We have to arrow down and select UEFI. Yes, and there we go. So now we just go down to apply and then exit. So I'm hitting apply, hitting exit, and we'll be good to go. The guide says none of this, but we'll be good to, yep, exit. Do I want to save the changes? Hell yeah, I want to save the changes. So now it's going to boot up again, and we should be good. So thanks so much, ChatGPT. You saved my bacon with this. I would have never figured this out.
You're very welcome. I'm glad we could get it sorted. Once it reboots, the installer should recognize the EFI setup. Let me know if you need any more help.
Yeah, and you don't have to play around with Rufus or GDisk or any of those utilities that we did. The problem is that the firmware of the T5600 itself isn't able to handle UEFI mode. So no matter what you do with the disks, it just can't work with UEFI until you change that setting in the BIOS.
That's a great insight. It's always a good reminder to check firmware settings first. Now that you've got it sorted, everything should run smoothly.
Well, we've got a problem here. So, oh, you know what? No, we don't have a problem. So let me talk to my users again quick.
No worries. Take your time. If anything else comes up, I'm here to help.
All right, so to my subscribers, we can see I forgot to check this option here, boot sequence UEFI USB. So it wasn't able to boot. So all I got to do is check that and then go down to apply and make sure it's still checked, which it is, and then go down to exit. Oops, so now I think I accidentally hit load defaults. So we gotta make sure that's checked. I think that's what went wrong last time. So we'll hit apply. Now load defaults is selected, so we got to make sure exit is selected, and there we go. Now it should work.
Great catch. Making sure those settings are correct is crucial. It looks like you're all set now. Everything should work smoothly from here.
Well, hopefully that's the idea anyway.
Fingers crossed. Let me know how it goes once it boots up.
I gotta clean my desk a little.
A tidy workspace always helps. Good luck with the reboot.
All right, so here's the fan warnings. We're gonna hit F1. Ah, shit. So, oh no, no, it's working. It's working. Hell yeah, it's working. It's working.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Everything's falling into place.
I'm gonna turn on my air freshener. Hopefully that doesn't mess with the audio.
It should be fine. If there's anything else you need, just let me know.
Ugh. All right, we got all that great text with the OK, the green OK in the square brackets.
Perfect. That's a good sign that everything's loading correctly.
Thanks again for that BIOS thing. I might have figured it out at some point, but man, it would have taken me a long time of just sitting and thinking about it.
Happy to help. It's all part of the process, and now you've got it down.
Oh, this is already looking a lot better.
That's great. Looks like you're on the right track.
Yes, it says primary ESP now.
Awesome. That means it's recognizing the EFI partition.
Hell yeah, it is.
Nice. Looks like you're all set now.
All right, so I think we can hang up now. Well, let me see here. I think there's one more. Let's see here. So, edit. Oh, I have to leave unmounted. Yeah, I think we can hang up now, and I'll just be talking with my users and reading through my guide. Thanks again for your help.
You're welcome. Good luck with the rest of your setup. Have a great day.
Isn't that like what a crazy world we live in? Like imagine, when it can do that for law, it can do that for health, it can do that for construction. You can just buy like a plot of land is like 10, 12,000 dollars. So you could just for cash buy a plot of land, and then it's going to tell you how much it'll cost to build your house, and you can probably build a house for like 50K, if you don't have to hire any contractors or anything. So like, the price of a home at some point is going to simply be the cost of all the raw materials and the price of a ChatGPT subscription. Like imagine the world we're entering. We're going to enter that world in less than 5 years too. Like we're probably even a little bit in that world now. Like it could substantially help. Like if you buy a few textbooks on home building and like read the textbook and have discussions with ChatGPT, you could probably even do that today if you're a subscriber to Advanced Voice Mode. All right, so let's go back to the guide. So let's see. So I got all the way up to here. I set it to 512, format FAT32, leave unmounted for all of them. Oops, and I used the arrow keys. Using the arrow keys is bad. So for each SSD, uh, make sure that they're set to mount there. I guess I wasn't able to do that. Mount, leave unmounted. I don't know how to make sure that they're set to mount. So let's go back and look at all these. Yeah, so that step was completely missing from the guide. Really important step. You have to go into your BIOS and you have to make sure that it's set up to use UEFI rather than legacy boot mode. Okay, so I added them both as boot devices. Uh, so now you go in and we can see we have a primary and we have a backup. That's what I saw on mine. So we just hit edit on the primary, change it to 512. The mount point will be boot UEFI, save. Then we hit edit on the backup. There we go. And then we change that to 512. Now we can leave unmounted. That's exactly what I have. Perfect. So you got to make sure that this is unclear as well. What it should say is you got to make sure that the primary is set to mount at there. The backup you can leave unmounted. All right, so let's move on to the next part. All right, so now we're going to add a GPT partition to each of the drives. So we'll start with 052. 052, oh, 05, yes, 052 is my primary ESP, so we'll start with that. So we're going to hit add partition, just as we see there. Then we can tank that and go to the next one. We're going to add 1 gig partition. We're going to leave it unformatted. And, oh, so we don't have the option to leave it unmounted, unfortunately. But I'll just hit create. Hopefully that doesn't cause an issue. Now let's go to 842. We're going to go to free space, add GPT partition, one gig. We're going to leave unformatted and don't have the option to leave unmounted on this one either. So hopefully that's not a problem. Okay, so now we have the partitions. Okay, so now this is to do it for the backup ESP, which is 09T in the guide. So you select the free space there, you add a GPT partition, and then you set it is to leave unformatted, and you can't change the mount point. So, and the guide shows that for the backup. So now this is interesting. It says do not choose a mount point. This is important for setting up RAID later. So yeah, I don't know how to not choose a mount point. That kind of seems like a problem that I have to go against the guide like that. Yeah, I have to have a mount point. All right, so for the other disk, I don't have to, but for this one I do. I see that there's a mount. Yeah, I don't have the option to unselect. So I'll show briefly what I have because it's a bit different from what the guide shows. So I have the file system summary here. I have the available devices here and the used devices. So the file system summary, we do have the option to unmount, but it's not selectable. So I'll do close. Now in the creating the partition was easy enough. You go to the free space, you add the partition, and then so you can change the mount point now, which is interesting. All right, so let's just do it. Let's just do it now. All right, and then we'll delete this one. All right, yeah, let's just delete this. There we go, and then we'll create one. 1 gig. Leave unformatted. Okay. Oh, this is cool. So you can leave unmounted like this. So you have to the order you do it matters. So you have to go down and select the mount point first. There we go. That's how you do it. So then we'll delete this one. Go to the free space, add GPT partition. We'll go down. The first thing we'll do is change the mount point. Then we'll change the format to leave unformatted. And now we can follow it exactly as the guide says. There we go. Now we've got two unmounted ones. Now we do have a mount point in here still, but now we do have the settings as shown in the guide. If we go back into the edit, well, you know what, it did. Yeah, it did mount them, but or well, it says the mount point, but it should be fine. All right, so next we're going to set up the RAID. All right, so they have the same thing, file system summary, available devices, used devices. So next they're going to go to create a software RAID right here. I have that, so hit enter. All right, so next they're going to change the name. They're going to change the name from MD0 to boot RAID. Boot RAID 1. And then leave everything else. Oh, so make some changes as well. So it's going to be mirrored like that. That's the default setting. Then it has the name of the drive. Then partition one. Now there are multiple partitions on here. Uh, okay, I'm not sure which partition to use. It says 03N and 09T. Uh, so I've got my 052. Okay, so I'll select that. And I've got that. Okay. So, and then before I hit create, I'll show this to my subscribers because this is quite a bit different from what we see in the guide, but it should be because I'm using different drives. So we can see I changed the name to boot RAID 1, left this as default. We're going to use RAID level 1. And then this whole thing is different because I have different drives. So we can see the sizes of each drive. We see don't want to touch this at all. This is the USB drive that I'm running this program on. Now we can see my trusty old 052 and my trusty old 842 drives. We can see the partition 2 that we remember creating. They're both active partitions. So we're going to select both of them and then hit create. Okay, and there we go. It looks a lot different than the guide here. I think the leave unmounted probably messed things up, but I didn't have the option to follow the guide exactly, so hopefully this will be fine. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so next we're going to add another partition. So they're doing it on 03N. 03N is the primary ESP. For me, the primary ESP is 052. So let's go to the free space on 052. Add a GPT partition and go to the next slide. All right, and then we can leave that blank because we want that to go up to the max size. Their max size is 231. My max size is 930. So we're going to leave that mount point as the /, but we're going to change the format to leave unformatted and hit create. All right, and then they're going to go to their next disk, 09T. So I'll go to my next disk, which is the backup ESP, which is 842. Go to the free space, add GPT partition, leave that size blank because we want to fill up the whole thing. Change the format to leave unformatted and change the mount to a /. All right, easy. That part's easy. So there we go. Do not format it. Choose leave unformatted. Really important. Do not choose a mount point. Okay, we didn't. Well, we chose the / mount point, but that matched the guide. Create a partition using all remaining space. Don't fill in the size text box. It will automatically use all the remaining space. So next step. All right, so now we're going to go down to create RAID software again, like we did before. Okay. Then we're going to make a different kind of RAID this time. We're going to name it OSDRIVER AID1. So OS driver RAID with a shared R1. I'd rather have it with 2 R's, but I'm just going to follow the guide exactly because when I don't follow the guide exactly, bad things happen. All right, and then we need to select partition 3, that new partition we made. I showed this before, so I feel like I don't have to show this again. Just like what I showed before, hit create. All right, so create a software RAID again. Choose both partitions you just created, partition 3. Make sure RAID level is set to 1. That's what's set to by default. Name it OS driver RAID or something meaningful to you. this is meaningful to me, hit create and hit enter. All right, now we're going to configure the boot partitions. So the first thing we do is go to the boot RAID as shown in the guide. So let's see if I have that. Yep, I have that. The name of the disk changed. So so yeah, so we have now it's interesting. See how for available devices we have fewer. We don't have both. Our devices changed. So we have the individual device, and then we have the RAID. So we don't have a listing for 039 and a listing for 019 anymore. That's because they're added to a RAID, so they're basically acting as one device. So so now we need to add that. So we need to go into that one device that they're acting as. Okay, and hit format. All right, and then we'll see what to do in the next slide. We're going to choose ext4. We're going to choose mount/boot. And I don't have to show this because what I've got now is exactly what's in the guide. So as long as you can see the guide, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So select boot RAID you created. Format is ext4. Set mount point to /boot. All right, so next step, we're going to create a volume group. All right, so now we're going to name it. Okay, so there's some. So these are your drives. You actually have to guess which device is yours because you can't see them. Welcome to the wonderful world of open source software. So you can't tell which is which. So it looks like the first thing, if we open this in a new tab, we can zoom in on it. So we're going to name it Ubuntu install. Right now the default name is VG0. All right, and then oh yeah, so it looks like he's using a version that that was. But this is interesting. I don't get the same. Huh. Yeah, so I have a different one. I have a different one. Yeah, so this is a known bug in the beta version. I don't think I have the beta version anymore. I think I have version .02. Okay, so this is what you do so to reproduce this, select LVM. On the next screen, there's a summary at the top. There's a section for all available PVs. Uh, Select the VG, hit enter, select edit. The pop-up window, there should be a list of physical volumes. They are there, but in black text on the background. If you have only one disk in the system, you can, without difficulty, select the. So there's probably some written instructions that'll help with this. Yeah, so select created, name it Ubuntu volume group or something meaningful to you. So he has it as Ubuntu install. Let's name it Ubuntu volume group instead. Okay. Um, when selecting the device for the LVM, you'll encounter a bug in the installer. The installer will show multiple devices without clear identifiers. This is a known issue that persists in the non-beta release of a stable mission, very important server operating system. Welcome to the world of open source software. This is part of the fun of using open source. Remember, it won't be open source if it worked. That's funny. Okay, so to select the correct device, look at the option that's around the size of your install. So I'll definitely show this. Uh, Choose the largest option, which should correspond to your RAID array. Ignore the smaller sizes and pray. All right, well, this is a good time to show what I got here. So I've got the create LVM volume group. That's the same menu as in the guide. Now there were two names in the guide. There was one from the screenshot and one from the text. I went with one from the text, Ubuntu volume group. Now, luckily for me, I don't have, I have a version where the bug has been fixed. So I see two devices. I see the MDOS RAID and I see partition 1. So I don't see any sizes, so I'm not sure which one to select. Ah, here we go. So I selected partition 1 and the size was the same size as my USB. So I definitely do not want to go with partition 1 because that's my USB drive. So when I select the MD /OS driver, now I get the right size. So then the next step in the guide was to hit create volume group, and now we're going to enter a passphrase. I might have to be careful with this. So let me stop my screen and see what the guide says. So create an encrypted volume with the LVM volume group selected. Choose create encrypted volume. Set a strong password. So I can't show this here. I have to set a strong password and to use a password manager and not create a recovery key. So leave that unchecked. Um, Optionally, create recovery key. If you do this, realize the recovery key can be used to encrypt your volume. Don't do this unless you have a place to hide it that not even your cat can get to. So I'm not going to create the key, but I'm going to set a strong password. This is part of why I kind of unofficially ended this series, despite spending so much more time on it later. This is important to protect and keep private, so I'm going to pause the video, set that up, and be right back. All right, so I'm back. Hopefully I don't forget the password myself, but I think this is good enough for now. So next we're going to create logical volume for root. So we're going to select the encrypted volume I just created, okay, which is titled Ubuntu volume group. I'm going to hit edit. Oh, wait, what? Okay, so we have to go down to the free space. Then, okay, now we can name it. It's named LV-0 by default. We're going to change the name to Ubuntu root volume. Okay, we're going to use the maximum size. We're going to use ex4, and we're going to have it set to the /. Review and confirm. Double check your configuration. So it should look like this. Okay, to root. Yep. /boot 1 on RAID 1. Yep. 512 on each SSD. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Looks good. Okay, so before I hit done, I will show this to my subscribers. Password I don't see is listed anywhere on there, so it should be good. So this will be the final review before we move on to the next code. Okay, so here's the file system summary. We've got the mount point. We've got a / there, a new logical volume group, new software RAID. here, which is the about 1 gig. We've got the 512, so new partition of local disk. That looks good. Available devices, we have no available devices. Everything we have is used. So now we have a logical volume group. We have OS driver aid. We have the boot RAID. Now we have our two disks with partitions on them. We have the primary disk, which will be 052, primary ESP. So we have a 512 on there. And then same thing with the secondary of 512. So everything looks good to go. All right, so then there's a continue screen. So we hit continue and confirm yes on there. Um, So carefully review the summary one last time. Remember, we're erasing everything on these drives to the point where even Rossmann Repair can't recover it. That's okay. These are fresh new drives, or the data on the drive belonged to a friend of mine, and I'd rather not access it anyway. I don't want to see 1 terabyte of dick pics. If you create a encrypted volume, write over it, and then want the data back, good luck with that one. Yeah, so you blow away all your data. That's good for me. If you want to proceed, click continue. Did it. Follow the remaining Ubuntu server installation steps. Set up your username. So I'm going to type in my full name. Type in my server name. This is the name that it uses when it talks to other computers. So I'm going to say Graham's Ubuntu server. I'll use underscores if I may. Okay. And then username, I'll just go with username I always use. Password. Okay. All right, and then we'll go to done. Looks good. Okay, and then next we need to follow everything. The next thing it says is to upgrade to Ubuntu Pro. Uh, I don't know what that means. Let's see what it means. So, huh. Yeah, there's nothing in the guide about that. Let's have a conversation with ChatGPT. Hey, have you ever heard of Ubuntu Pro?
Hey Graham, yeah, Ubuntu Pro is a subscription service from Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu. It offers extended security maintenance, compliance features, and support for your Ubuntu systems. It's especially useful for enterprises or anyone who wants a bit more peace of mind with long-term security updates.
Oh, so you have to pay for it?
Yeah, there's a cost involved. The pricing varies depending on the number of machines and the level of support you need. If you're running Ubuntu in a business environment,
All right, that's all we need to know. So I'll skip for now. All right, so next part of the guide is we're going to let's see here. Yeah, right here. So now we're going to install OpenSSH server. Okay, and we can, yep. So note, installing OpenSSH allows you to remotely access your machine to install things, use it, mess with it, etc., rather than sit in front of your computer in your unair-conditioned garage when it's 117 Fahrenheit outside. When you see me on video installing things via terminal, I'm almost never in front of the actual machine or VM I am using. I am remoting in using SSH. Note, do not install Docker via Snap in the next menu when it asks you to. We will install Docker later, and it won't be the miserable Snap version of Docker. If you install Docker using Snap accidentally, this is understandable. If you install Docker via Snap by choice, you'll be in hell and you'll have earned it. It's a fun guide to follow. All right, so yep, we're going to select, and I'll show this because I don't think it's in the guide. I don't think there's a screenshot of this in the guide. So we're in the SSH configuration. You can choose to install SSH, so we're going to do that. This we can't change. Now this part you can set up to authorize some keys, but we can do that later, and it's easier to do it later. So we probably will want to do that because then you won't have to type in the password every time. But we'll just do that later. So I'll hit done. Now it's looking for applicable third-party drivers available locally or online. And all I have the option to do is to go back, so we have to wait for this to complete. All right, so while that's going, we'll look at the guide again. So, yep, we're going to get that. So we're going to move on to, so the next thing should be Docker. We got to be careful not to install Docker via Snap. And then we need to reboot. Okay, and it says no applicable third-party drivers are available locally online. Great. Continue. Now we've got a log going. It says initializing system. So I can show this because this isn't in the guide either. All right, so there we go, initializing system. Don't see any passwords showing up on there, thankfully. So installing system, configuring the RAID. So all those settings we did are now being applied and put in production. All right, this might take a little bit of time to apply all these settings. I'm going to pause it and check messages. I'll be back. All right, I'm back. So let me show where I'm at. So we can see installation complete up here in the front. We see the logs. We can look at the full log, or we can hit reboot now. So I'm going to hit reboot now. Before I do that, though, I'm going to briefly check the guide because I think it's important before I hit that reboot now. Uh, I have to. Okay, so I have to wait until it's done shutting down. So we're going to hit that. Reboot now. So, and then once it's shutting down, I gotta yank the USB drive. So, failed unmounting CD-ROM. I'm not using a CD-ROM. So let's see what happens next. Now, all these messages I think are coming from the drive. So you have to leave the drive plugged in until it's fully down. So let me try hitting enter. Okay, so nothing happened after I hit enter. But we can't pull that drive until this whole process is complete. So we can see something is still working. So we'll wait to pull that drive. All right, and sometimes this does take a while. We have seen during boot up when I messed around with those drives, plugged them in new. It has taken several minutes at this prompt, so that's okay. We'll just leave it running, and it should be several minutes. If it's too long, I'll pause it. Ah, there we go. So we're already at the next step. It just took a minute or two. So please remove. Ah, look at this, perfect. So they actually give you time to remove it. So they say, please remove the installation medium, then press enter. So you don't have to just kind of guess when it's time to remove it. It'll tell you. All right, so I removed it, and I'm going to hit enter. That's a nice feature because I was wondering like when I would have to yank it out, but it made it very clear. All right, so now we're booting up, and we're going to boot up using those disks that we set up, the RAID array. All right, fan issue still, that's okay. F1. Failed to open, okay, so we got a problem here. So now I think we just hit Ubuntu, and well, let's check the guide. Now it will automatically select in 18 seconds the Ubuntu, but that's okay. We'll just leave it automatically. Okay, yep. So this is good. So yeah, we can select that. So I'm going to select that. Now it should ask for the password. Um, so I can show until we get up to the password prompt, but I obviously can't show me typing in the password. So here we go. So it's kind of a weird. It doesn't really tell you that it's asking for a password. So it says PT-0 and it says please unlock the disk, and then maybe it's off the screen telling you to enter in the password. But I'm pretty sure I enter the password in at this blinking symbol here, so I got to do that off camera. All right, and I entered in the password incorrectly, so I'll enter it in correctly. Okay, I entered in the password correctly now. So I can see what we got. So we just got the basic stuff. Yeah, all the internet link information. There we go. Now we've got my login. So let me stop that and log in. Oh, I think I have to. Yeah, I have to enter in my username and then my password. Okay, so now I can definitely show this. This is really good. Um, okay, so one thing to realize is this is really long, so it kind of extends there. So you definitely might want to consider making this your system name shorter. Um, so yeah, because then it won't bleed out so far to the screen. But I'm happy with it. If I have an issue with that, I'll deal with it later. So there we go. So now we can move on to the next of the guide. We can also end the video. This is probably a good logical stopping point. We're at about the 2.5 hour mark here. But yeah, so we've got these next steps here, which is static IP mapping in pfSense post install. Let's do that. Let's get all the way down there because it looks like this is part of, yeah, this is the very last. So let's get all the way down to past this one and then stop the video at this next major section. Okay, so we're going to follow all of these screenshots. All right, and then we're going to enter in the password to pfSense, which is sensitive information. So I'll pause and do that off camera. All right, I'm back, and the sensitive information is now complete. Let me show another thing I did off camera. So you can see the tower is no longer here. It's no longer plugged up to the monitors. That's because I've got SSH now, so I can unplug these monitors and put them in storage somewhere. But for now, I'm just going to show what I've got here. So I've got the PFSense device here hooked up to the router device. Then I've got another cable going off to my Netgear. That's plugged into my Ubuntu server. Uh, and then I've got another off here on my actual workstation that I use. So I no longer have to have it cluttering up the middle of my place. I can just have it off in this kind of like IT corner here that I've got going with a bunch of cables everywhere. I could probably buy something to manage those cables, but I kind of like there being crazy cables everywhere. I don't know. Unless I trip over them, of course, which I did at least one time during this setup process. So yeah, I can clean that up. I can put my toaster away. I can definitely put my toaster away now, so I'm going to do that. Don't need that. It'd be nice to have this power strip be like yes, less utilized. All right, taking the power strip out. I've also got an extra Ethernet cable. I don't need to use. All right, just throw that in my one of my IT boxes over here, and then yeah. So that's pretty much good to go. I do need to work on setting up more monitors at some point, but don't need to work on that now. I've got more cables to put in my IT box. Yeah, I can put this whole KVM setup in my IT box. It's just not working. Deal with that at some other point. I'm just trying to make things less cluttered with less cables everywhere. And I don't want that power strip to be utilized to be full up with stuff I'm not using. All right, so that's a lot cleaner. It looks like I have a tool on the ground, so I'll clean that up as well. Got a battery on the floor as well. I'll put that in with my batteries. Oh, and my toolkit is not in the toolkit spot. So the question becomes, where is it? Oh, it's right there. Because I was using tools right there. All right. Okay, now the toolkit is put away in the toolkit cabinet where young children can get at it and saw off their fingers if they so choose. It's a free country, or it used to be. Um, and let's uh, keep going. Yeah, keep going here with the guide. So now I'm logged in here, so we've got some more screenshots to follow. We have to go to diagnostics ARP table. And then we need to look for .5.2. Ah, DRAT, D-R-A-T. Oh, you know what? I never powered up the computer after I moved it. I have to hit the power button. That would help. It helps to turn things on. If it's not turned on, you might want to start there. You can try SSHing to it. You can try opening the case and rearranging the drives, but I would recommend maybe start with turning it on. Usually that fixes the issue. All right, so it's going to take a little bit of time to turn it on. I'm also a little bit worried that I have to enter in my drive password every time I turn it on. That would be very annoying, um, especially now because I would have to plug in the monitors and keyboard again because I detached them. Uh, So hopefully that's not the case. Let's give it like a few minutes. And if it doesn't show up here, then I think that's probably what's happening. All right, so it probably should be at that point by now. Let's wait until the 11:50 mark. I'll pause it and wait.